Welcome everyone to another C3UG video. I'm Colin Breckles with Castlebreck in Ontario, Canada. Gordon?
Hi, I'm Gordon Hegfield with HCL in Amherst, New Hampshire. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Smith of ME Smith Consulting in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Graham?
I'm Graham Makers from Brightech Systems in Vancouver, and Heiko?
Heiko Voigt from Harbourlight Software in Shelburne, Nova Scotia. And now, Colin, back to you. What's the topic of today?
Today's a great one. Here we're going to be showing Domino Restyle, a new feature to make existing apps beautiful in Domino. And with us, we've got Maureen Leland and Gordon Hegfield, both with HCL Technologies. Gordon doing double duty, also a member of C3UG. So Maureen, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Maureen Leland, and I'm here in beautiful Bolton, Massachusetts, where it is raining today. But here we have a nice blue screen, and we're here to talk about the good kind of blue screen, where it's not, crashing. It's just a pretty blue. We're very focused on color and UI these days because we're working on a project called Domino Restyle. And happy to talk about that with you today. We've been working on it for a little while. So first we'll introduce it. We'll talk about what it does and what it doesn't do, how it works. And most interestingly, we'll have demos, and I'm sure you'll have some questions and answers. We'll have the answers, you'll have the questions. At least we hope we will. Now, what is Restyle? It transforms the UI design of a database to a consistent, updated design. I'm sure we're all familiar with this picture. This actually isn't the first discussion database design I remember. It used to be like this really kind of funny brown, and then it went green. And now if you have a composite app in the Notes client, it looks a little different, but if you have Nomad, it still looks like this. Not a lot has happened to the discussion design in quite some time. Some of the templates have been updated, some of them haven't, but it takes a long time to update the UI design of an application. But imagine you had a feature that you could just run that took it from this to this, and just no coding, just press some buttons and you get there. So that's effectively what Restyle is. So why are we doing it? Because a lot of those Notes applications, they're vital to the organization. They're really important. You use them every day. And you've been staring at the same screen for decades now. And they look dated. They are dated. And organizations want to update their applications, but they may not have anyone around anymore who knows how to use Domino Designer, which breaks my heart a little bit. But that's the reality, is those skills aren't always there anymore. So if you don't understand the application, you don't know how to use Designer, and you certainly can't break this application that is vital to your organization, you're kind of stuck with the old design. So Restyle is here to help with that. And the other aspect is UI redesign is really hard. What's pretty? My idea of pretty is not necessarily Heiko's idea of pretty, or Graham's, or a real UI designer. If I make an app pretty, it's probably going to have puppies and it'll be blue and green, and not necessarily the best UI design in the world. So Restyle is also kind of like having a UI designer in your pocket, which is very helpful. So where can you find Restyle? It's going to be in the menu of the Notes client, the designer, and the Domino administrator whenever a database is selected. File, application, Restyle. It is an advanced menu option, and it will update the design of the application. You don't have to touch it. It does not touch the code. That's sort of, you can't break the app. That's like the cardinal rule. So we're basically going through. We have a wizard that guides the users through the process, lets you pick the colors and themes, and there are some options that you can pick. And it's integrated into the Notes client and Nomad core code. And we update the design elements programmatically because, oddly, we know how to do that. And it's kind of like an automated designer. So how does it work? I'm going to call on Gordon for that. And Gordon's been working mostly on the JSON part to the point where occasionally in Scrum, I actually call him Jason, but
Yes,
it's kind of his specialty. So why don't you take this one?
sure. So essentially, what we try to do is make it very much data driven, and essentially what we have is a JSON file that corresponds to each theme, and there's the themes are you'll see in a minute, but there's one called colorful action bar, and there's one called dark outline, and essentially they treat portions of the UI differently, and you'll see in the dialogue that it kind of gives you a little preview in certain cases about what it's actually going to do. On top of that, there is a set of palettes. So our UI designer has come up with a set of 3 different palettes in this case that have colors that all blend properly, that match correctly, with by someone who's got a designer's eye, as opposed to me, who's got a coder's eye, which I don't see colors that well. And then there's another file that's essentially for what I call typography. I'm stealing a little bit from I think it's React components there, but it's essentially we've abstracted out the different aspects of fonts into some named attributes that are then referenced throughout the themes. And then finally, there's a schema that keeps all the themes basically valid, so that if something were to change them on disk in an appropriate way, we would catch those issues and stop the process. So the question about customization is currently not in Nomad, and in 1202 we're going to say doesn't yet support customization. We're looking at how that can work at this point. So no commitment there, but certainly at this point we're talking about it. Next slide.
All right. Oops. There we go. All right. So what do you need to run Restyle? You can't go Restyle you have to have the right access. So you can't decide any random user can't go restyling every app. You can't have the chaos of, I want it blue, this person wants it pink, this person wants it green. You have to have designer access to the application. Now, if you have a lot of people with designer access who can't decide what they want to do, you could see the application changing color daily, but we don't anticipate that's really how it's going to work. You do need designer access to the application or manager. We do recommend and kind of insist that you redesign the template, not the applications that derive from it, because unless you break the inheritance, which if you really want to restyle just that one instance, you really need to break the inheritance by going into the design tab of the info box and saying, unchecking the box that says it inherits. If you really, really want to, but we're not going to let you restyle an application that inherits from a template, because otherwise the next design refresh it would be gone. So it's silly. We do not make a copy first. So if you're not really sure you want to do this, make a copy of the application before you actually restyle it. And that's good practice. Take a copy, see what it's going to look like, experiment with colors, experiment with themes, experiment with styles. When you're sure, do the restyle on the real thing. the only reasonable way for us to get the code out in 1202 and in Nomad 105 was to just, boom, go right into the application and make the changes. So, and these people, anyone using it has to have designer access. So we are encouraging, make a backup, please. One thing to notice is because we do, we're modifying design elements. So we're resaving them. We're not touching the code, but the signatures are going to change. With the person who designed the app 15 years ago and is no longer in the company, that signature is now going to change to your signature or whoever is doing the re-signing. So in the client, this may cause some ECL warnings, just an alert. So one way to do that is if you have the signing, you may just want to go into the admin client or into the designer client and do a re-sign it. That's one possibility, or people can just accept the new signatures. That's, but there's no way around it. We're resaving the design elements. The signatures are going to change because we have to sign them. That's security. So what do we do? What elements do we restyle? So forms, pages, basically the traditional ones, forms, pages, subforms, views, folders, frame sets, but not if they're hidden from the notes client. We haven't crossed the line into web apps because web apps are probably full of CSS. You can't necessarily look, a form that's only for the web is likely full of HTML, full of CSS. It's not, not as, it's not quite as clear what to do with those guys. So our focus right now is on Notes client apps. We do not even open agents or script libraries. So those aren't going to be re-signed. They're just going to stay there. We don't touch them. And X pages, custom controls, any composite app stuff, none of that stuff is even, we don't even open the design elements. We have a filter that just opens these guys and strips out anything hidden from the client or hidden from the web. We do have, that's some place where we'll be looking for user feedback because, do you want us to restyle something that is for the web only? Is that, is that going to help or is it going to hurt, or did we make the right choice? So that's what we do and what we don't do. And when can you have it? In Nomad 105, which I think is imminent, like maybe tomorrow or very, very soon, it's coming out English only because of the way Nomad accepts translations. We're going to be iterating in Nomad. The Notes client tends to come out once a year, so we will come out in 1202 with language support in the Notes client. So Heiko will be able to use his German menu item in 1202. But in Nomad, it's only going to show up if the browser language is English. So 1202 will come out with very close, we have like a couple more weeks of work we can do to make changes between now and 1202, but it'll be very close to what you see today. In 106, Nomad comes out quarterly, so you'll start seeing features come out in Nomad, in 106, 107, et cetera, through those quarterly releases, and then again in 1203. Assuming offering management doesn't change the numbering scheme, I have no idea what's happening. I assume it's staying the same. I have no idea, actually. So now we're at the point where we can demo. I hope you would like to see Restyle at this point. Great. I just want to get this. I have to refresh my screen here because it has timed out. That always takes a minute. All right. Yes, it's successful. All right. I'm ready to go again and start. So here we have the Nomad client. This is very close to the 105 final code. And here is a Restyle discussion database. No data in it, but this is what we're all used to looking at. And I made a copy because you never want to do that. And I actually put some data in the copy just for giggles. And so I could show you this. Just a reminder of what it looks like. This is something I added to the form just for testing purposes, just to show a little more info. So we've got a little bit of data. This is the old discussion database. So I'm going to do File, Application, Restyle. I'm running a wacky development version, so that's why you see 4 restyles. You're only going to see 1, I promise. So now, first of all, I'm looking at a discussion application, and I said, like, not 5 minutes ago, that you can't restyle applications that inherit from the template. What happened here? I broke the inheritance because the discussion application is actually a really good test case to make sure we're doing. So I broke the inheritance on this guy before I put it on my system. So that's why I can actually inherit I can restyle a discussion application, an instance of one. So back up your design. Don't say we didn't tell you. Do you wish to proceed? Yes. So here we have our wizard that's going to take us through the 4 steps. So watch this picture because this is kind of cool. This was fun to do in case you couldn't tell. If I want, so the theme color, notice, hopefully this will come through in the Zoom meeting. This is creamy taupe. This is sea breeze. Blue looks good with blue. But what if I want to switch this up to orange? Well, that looks pretty terrible. But orange, but not my favorite color scheme. Teal. I like teal. But notice these colors are all like, specially selected by a UI designer, not by Gordon, not by me. And also, we can have different, what do we want our application to look like? So, colorful action bar, basically the whole bar at the top is solid. Simple, just, not quite so much color. The action bar is kind of quiet over here, or dark outline. I'm going to start with colorful action bar because it's kind of my favorite. So select theme. So we've done that. Our app, we want our app to basically look like this. And it was kind of fun making these, getting apps respond to the colors. So mapping. Now this part of the process might be a little difficult, and we're, looking at ways to improve this in the future. When you look at, actually, if you go back here and looking at this picture, now this, as you look at an application, if you look at discussion, application names are often up here. Server locations are often down here. There's often an outline here. There's often a view over here in a launch page of an application. Is that always the case? Absolutely not. But this is kind of the mental model of an application for Domino that Restyle uses. It doesn't always apply. So, and in the case of a discussion template, we can actually figure out who's who. In Team Room, we can pretty much figure out who's who. In Mail, which I'll show you in a minute, we can't because everything's computed. So if something's computed, you'll find yourself saying not applicable. Or if your application doesn't have a frame set that follows this pattern, maybe if we can find an outline, maybe we'll call the outline. If we can find a title, some of these may have values, some of them may not. If we can't figure out, we're going to need the user's help in looking at their application. And this is something that we think will may be a challenge for people without designer skills, because you can if someone knows designer, you can go into the application and figure this out. If you don't know designer, this is going to be a hurdle. So this is a place where we are looking to improve, hopefully by 106. On the other hand, in a lot of cases, we do get it right. So, and in this case, we do. So next. Now, what do we do? I'm going to just match the background colors of the theme, because in this application, there's nothing like profits and losses where the colors actually mean something. So totally restyle it. Get rid of the background images on tables and override composite application properties, which doesn't matter in Nomad, but it does matter in the Notes client, because if you looked at this app in the Notes client, it wouldn't be green, it would be gray. So if you wanted to look at the same, you want to click this box. Note that this part will only show up if your application does have some composite app stuff in it. So I've selected the theme, I've confirmed the mapping, I've confirmed the settings. I'm ready to run Restyle. So that's, I could bail out now. It's like, if I haven't made my backup, I don't know, maybe we should put in the prompt here. Have you really, do you solemnly swear you've made a backup? I don't know. But in this case, this is a copy. I'm going to go ahead and say Restyle. So notice how this is actually, this was fun too. It actually matches the colors I picked. So it's done. That's it. We're all set. I can either just say I'm done and go back, or I can just say open the application. And it's going to close the app and reopen it. And here's our restyled app. And if I open up this document, it's not just the front of the application we changed. We've gotten rid of that background. We've, played with the color tables here. Our buttons are changed. We've played with the outlines, even if they're not the special outline, we've updated that too. What if I decide I really don't like this teal, even though it is my favorite color? If I want to go through application, restyle. Can I do this again? Yes, I can. It's like, oh, I'd rather be purple. And let me just change it to dark outline. Let me see what that looks like. So you can do this process multiple times. Next. It remembers what you chose last time. So we always use your choices from last time to pre-populate your next one. So you don't have to remember what you chose here. Or if you want to change it, this is what you did. So maybe you want to do something different next time. I'm going to restyle it again. And see, that's purple this time. Isn't that fun? I'm easily amused, but it's all done. We can open it. And now we've got our dark outline for purple. This is the dark outline theme, has a light color here. We'll notice this is a little clipped, but it is not in the Notes client. But I will point out to you, so is the original. So, there are things we want to go through and improve, but, this is the old, this is the new. I think this looks a little better. Now our button is purple. There are some subtle color changes that I don't think are quite coming through. But, I think we've made kind of a pretty dramatic difference to the application. And that was pretty quick. I'll show you one more thing. This is the mail file. And there. I just want to show you the case of file application. And this is actually a very large application, as you all know. And I've broken, Martha is not, no longer inherits from a template either. So I can let's do creamy taupe. Let's do indigo. That looks not too bad. Here, we couldn't figure it out. Why? because there is actually no application area. We have nested frame sets in mail, that's fine. We introspect those. But this outline is actually computed. Local here is actually in the preview pane. So they've played games in mail between, things being computed and doing things unexpected that we weren't able to figure this out. Turns out there is no application title. This is all part of this outline. Actually, it's a page. I went into Designer to figure this out. And it's notes mail picker. And can't get to the server name. So there are cases where we can't do everything. Get rid of the composite app, remove background images. Mail's going to take a little bit longer because it's a bigger application, but it doesn't take that long. Now, I will note you're seeing a little spinny wheel here. The Notes client, which Gordon will show you, actually has a progress bar. But it's going through all the design elements that it needs to, but there are a lot of forms and views and folders, and there's an incredible number of frame sets even in the mail file. So this will finish, I promise. So I'm also working on a machine that is challenged, shall we say. I'm working in a virtual machine that has about 8 gig of memory available. So I'm sure it would be faster on any other environment. There we go. It's done. We can open it. And there we go. It's done a little bit, but in this case, you might have to go in and do a little more. But it's also it's been a really good test case for us because we're going in and we're modifying CD records, and we have to be absolutely sure we're getting that right. And mail is about as complex an application as you can get. So, we can restyle the mail application and it's still fine. I can make a new message, or rather Martha can. Here we have, it's just, I put a button on my mail memo. Background's gone. It's, much simpler and prettier. So with that, there's even a little more we do. I'm going to hand it over to Gordon, who can show you some of the other cool things we do. This is just sort of the top level of stuff we do. I need to find how to stop sharing. Is that here? I guess. How do I stop sharing?
I'm just going to start sharing.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent.
All right, so you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to show just one of the things we alluded to earlier was that sometimes
Gordon,
close
Yeah.
Slack or
yeah, I was
just
just gonna say
minimize
the same
Slack.
thing.
Oops. Okay, so is that good?
Yep, that's good now.
All right. So one of the things we alluded to earlier is that sometimes colors are important to the app. Depending on if it's like some kind of budget thing or something like that, and you may want to pretty up the app, but you don't want to lose all the colors contrasts and that you may have added to alert people to certain conditions. So I'm gonna show how the color mapping works. The basic idea is that what our UI designer's done is basically taken the 12 hues on the color wheel, and for each of the palettes come up with colors that match the hue, but fit in with the color scheme. So, here's an example. So this is actually one of my better UI designs. You can see when nobody lets me near a UI design. so yeah, it's, red and blue, red and blue, red and blue. So what you can do is when you go into Restyle, I'm going to select, actually, I like Sea Breeze. Let's pick something else. Purple. And go to the next one. This has nothing in it but a table, so none of these matter. And then here, and this time I'm gonna select map, and that's gonna basically cause the mapping logic to run instead of just the overwrite logic to run. The overwrite logic takes everything from the theme JSON. The mapping will map certain elements. So kind of hit Restyle. We're gonna watch the progress bar. That was quick. And I'm going to click open. And now when I come back in here, you can see it's reset these colors, and it does basically the red has gone to this nice pink color, and in this case the white has gone to, or actually the blue has gone to a white color in this case, but you still have the contrast available. So we didn't lose information. That if I'd done this using the overwrite, you would just make it all one color. So that's essentially how the mapping works. I think it does a pretty good job in a lot of cases. And that's it for on my end for demos.
I think at this point, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so realizing you wanted to ship it as soon as possible and then increment and add some things, I was just wondering what the vision is for custom themes and stuff. Like, where do you see yourself going with it, or is that something you're prepared to talk about at this time?
I mean, the reason one of the main reasons for doing things in JSON is, customization has been in our heads from day one. But then as you look at our wizard, we've got choice A, B, or C. So, we really need choice 4, which is custom, where you can pick your own JSON file. It may take us a little while to get there, but we are driven. There's some code that's very expecting only 3 values, but there's not too much of it. So we are expecting that in the future, I'm not exactly sure when, but hopefully fairly soon, you'll be able to say, I want my C3UG theme, and maybe Heiko could have one for when he's in Germany or when he's in Nova Scotia, or there are different possibilities. So I view it, and we need a UI design for it, which is one of the barriers. Colorful action bar, this, that. And you should also be able to add different colors. We've got the 7 magic colors. You should be able to add them. Now, we probably don't want you to be able to take away any of our magic 7. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly when, but it is definitely in our minds, kind of close to the front. So.
Okay. So it sounds like you give it the ability to pull in a custom JSON file. I did catch that you have JSON schema validator built in so if we pass you a malformed JSON document, you'll reject it as you should. So that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's no accident. Any more questions?
One question that a customer actually asked me when I showed him the 105 Nomad demo, I have that on one of my development machines, was, oh, that's great. Would those guys be able to manipulate rich text content in the data documents as well, like normalize them? Because I have a customer that has huge documentation databases where people just dunk all sorts of stuff into a rich text item. And of course, like, everyone's doing its own table formatting, its own color settings, its own font selections and whatnot. And that would be an awesome tool set to really more or less streamline the content that you have inside of a document as well, besides the design elements.
That's interesting. I mean, because a form is nothing but a rich text field, effectively.
Right.
well, and a few other items. But one of the things I didn't mention is, and would be especially true of documents, probably even more so than the form, is we do font normalization. So on a form, you could have, if it's been edited over time, you could have 13 point here and 14 point here, 17 here, 25 here. And basically, Emmy, our UI designer, has said, okay, if it's fonts in this range, use this one. If fonts in this range, use this value. So that font normalization code, we do apply to the form. I could see that being used on a document quite easy. It's still the dollar body field. So that's an interesting idea. I like that. Does it do it today? No. Could it? Interesting.
And another question was, what's the target audience for Restyle? You mentioned from an access control setting, you have to be designer of an application, but what is your target audience that you're looking at? Is it like the citizen developer that's looking at a database? Is this an admin, or is this a whatever kind of developer that might not be in touch with Domino Designer all over the place? But so what's the target audience that you catering that, or you're building it for?
We're we call them the last man standing. So probably the admin, the citizen developer / admin. So have enough access to be able to do it, but not necessarily Domino Designer access, which is why we really want to work on that mapping idea, because I think that is a stretch for that audience. So you can imagine, if you imagine an admin, who gets complaints from their company saying, this application, we need it, but it looks terrible. And, this person probably has no UI skills either. Maybe they do, that may be unfair, but in a lot of cases, they may not have UI skills. So that's where having these pre-canned designs is really helpful. Now, if someone does have design skills, then, they'll be able to take this farther. They'll be able to do more on that mapping page, and possibly go into the app afterwards and do more than we do already. Although over time, we will be doing more and more. So we're trying to, you need the access, but we do not want people to have to be designers.
Okay.
Although our template developers, sorry, just quickly, our template developers actually are interested in this because it saves them time. So they may take it farther, but we've done all this automatically. It saves them a lot of work. So it is good for that audience, even though they're not the target. So go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I noticed on things like view column headers, you've added some white space, and that looks nice, certainly, and more modern. When people make really large forms with tons of fields organized in tables, does it do anything with white space or padding or row spacing or anything like that in tables on a form? Or is that something that's ever been discussed, if not?
We're not doing anything with fields yet. With tables, I don't think we changed sizes yet. Gordon, am I forgetting something? I don't think we changed cell size.
Yeah, I would have to go look at this spec. We do normalize things like border widths, that I know, and cell backgrounds, things like that. We normalize. I know we definitely do something with the borders, the cell borders, because I had to write a bunch of code for that. So that I remember. And I don't remember beyond that. I can go look at the spec to see what it is we do, though.
Thank you.
My instinct is not yet, but maybe we should.
Just wondered, and it might be something that even if you did it, the developer would have to just sort of try it and see what it did. Because if you've got some legacy app that's got a ton of fields on it and they're crammed in places, as they end up being that way.
Yeah.
Just so they don't spill over too many tabs or pages.
we do want to look at changing field, upgrading, the hinky minkies for fields. We want to maybe use the OS style for fields in more cases, things like that. We want to, that will be some of our future phases, changing what fields look like, but we should look at table sizes too, spacing.
I don't have a question per se, but kind of the key things that came through for me, certainly the no undo is a big one. So, good recommendations there in terms of making sure that you use backup. It feels almost like, as much as this is very wizard driven, need a little bit of a cookbook and not a huge amount of pages and pages and pages of how to use this, but again, just that reiteration of making sure that people understand that there's no going back. So run against a copy. So that stood out for me as just a really smart thing to pay attention to. But I absolutely love that you're testing this against the mail template, because I think we all know that mail is big and hideous and has all kinds of permutations. So to see this actually run against mail, I was quite impressed. That looked good, and a good illustration of the things that it can't do. So understanding people who are going to use this understand that it's not 100%, but you're getting pretty damn close. So that was really good. Thank you.
I mean, if you have the blood oath screen you're talking about putting in,
Yeah.
it's on them if they don't do the right thing. So,
Yeah.
Sorry.
So just curious, out of curiosity, with the code level that you have reached right now, is there any application where you say, okay, if we use that tool on that application, we'll kill it? Did you run into something that you couldn't really restyle?
We got some apps from some of our TAs, technical analysts, something like that. And some of the things we're going to have to look at, we scoped out what we could do for 12.02, and we thought nobody uses navigators anymore. I think we were wrong. So I think we're going to be, can we do something with navigators quickly? I don't know if it can make 12.02 or not. And also the application Gordon was using isn't frame set based. It does, it just has the default thing. So those are two kinds of applications where we can obviously always do something with a view. We can always, but if it has a navigator, it may, we're not doing anything with them yet. So you can end up with an application with this absolutely beautiful view and the bright green and pink and whatever navigator to the left of it with its images. And so, I think that's one of the next things we're going to have to look at, as well as that default, if you just create a view and just create an app with a view or two views and the no frame sets in the app, what do you get? That kind of app, because there's a lot of those too. I have an idea for that one because we can actually generate an outline. I think we can actually build up, we can create a frame set, we can create an outline and create something in that case, but it may take a little time to do that. But,
watching time, I think we should wrap. Michelle, did you have a question before we wrap?
Yeah, well, not a question, but a comment. When I first heard of this, the project in general, I was really excited because one of my clients right now, a few years ago, we had started talking to them and trying to help them because they were saying they're getting a lot of feedback from the user community saying that they don't like notes. They don't like notes because it looks old. And when we started delving into it and asking them for specific examples, they referred to custom applications that had been around forever. And those applications that are really crying out for a tool like this. So I think a lot of clients are going to be really thrilled when they can implement this tool set in their environment. It's going to be a perception changer for a lot of our clients. So thank you. Thank you for all the work.
You're welcome. It's been fun. Most days.
I agree. Okay, well, that's great. With that, let's wrap it up. So I'm going to throw it to Colin to remind everybody what to do on our videos. But again, also thanks to Maureen and Gordon for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maureen and Gordon. And for all of you spending the time with us, we appreciate it. If you don't mind taking a minute to throw us a like and subscribe if you haven't, we'd be grateful. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for joining.